The Packers and Cowboys have had their share of memorable playoff tilts, a lot of them featuring Mike McCarthy, who's going to be on the opposing sideline on Sunday afternoon at AT&T Stadium. So who better than to help us break it down than Bob Sturm for Expert Tuesday, a Packer fan working in Cowboys media in Dallas at the Ticket. He joins us for an Expert Tuesday. Let's go.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Bob Sturm from the Ticket in Dallas joins us on our show, Expert Tuesday. For those of you watching on YouTube, yes, the chain is out. Playoff chain, baby. We're going to keep it going, keep it rolling, and let's get into it with Bob Sturm. Joining me now from the Ticket in Dallas. Also, you can find all sorts of cool stuff. BobSturm.substack.com. Maybe seen his work at The Athletic as well. Bob Sturm. And Bob, you also happen to be someone who follows the Packers pretty carefully. Anyone that's watching on YouTube can see the Bucks Sports Illustrated's in the background there. So let's start there because we've got plenty to dig into here with the matchups. The Packers and the Cowboys set to play at Jerry World this Sunday afternoon. Where did you start on Jordan Love?
Oh, geez. Probably like everybody else at the time, probably annoyed that Green Bay was not trying to get another playmaker to add to what Rodgers and the offense had. And you know, it's also wild as a lifelong Packer fan to experience, and I know I'm not telling anybody who listens to this anything new, but to experience the Rodgers exit with the knowledge of the Favre exit and how it all worked out in the end, and how there is always a tomorrow with these franchises that our brains can't tell us of a life after Brett Favre or a life after Aaron Rodgers. So the Jordan Love stuff, honestly, you know, as you do, trying to evaluate draft prospects going in, I'm going to tell you, I was not terribly smitten with Jordan Love, and kind of thought probably rated him a day 2 guy who is a classic project guy. Most of those guys wash out and end up as backups or even at a lesser league sometimes. So to see this and to see the Packers play it like they did, which I guess turns out to be a pretty solid, except maybe waiting a year too long. But otherwise, it's hard to second guess anything. And to watch him grow this year in real time has been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think if you would have told most people in October, myself included, who was, I would think, higher on Jordan Love than most, that this is where he would end, you have to call BS on that, right? Like there was just no shot based on what we saw in October. So where have you seen the most change? I won't even call it growth. Let's just call it change.
Yeah. And you know, this a lot of it is data collected from that game in Kansas City a couple of years ago, and also from preseason games. And in all of those games, honestly, the biggest issue with him, and it goes back to his college days, is just it didn't look like he was a very good decision maker. It looked like he had a lot of YOLO to his game and a lot of let's throw it up there and hope for the best. And you can't do that in the NFL, and you definitely can't do that on a roster where Aaron Rodgers has trademarked the 40 touchdown, 5 interception season.
Right.
That is just his reluctance to throw into traffic might have been one of his slight flaws, but otherwise he had played the quarterback position at such a high level that you could have all the good of Brett Favre with none of the bad. It felt fictional.
Yeah, that seemed impossible.
It really did. And then to watch Love go out there and sort of litter rip into traffic and maybe something good will happen is just not fundamentally the way you can survive in this league. So to see him week to week improve his ability to make smart decisions and to not have turnover worthy plays everywhere in his performance, and then to do it without any sort of dependability or reliability from his supporting cast of this guy. Watson's not going to be out there. Okay, Musgrave is, and you just start saying, with interchangeable receivers, some off the waiver wire, for him to keep clicking down the tracks here in November and December is really, really unlikely. And I hope people appreciate what they're seeing.
Yeah, I called it in our Monday newsletter over at The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. I called it, he found a way to control the chaos. And that was his chaos, but also the chaos around him. And you saw it on full display the last 2 weeks, right? You have these two teams that are so different. You've got cover 0 or drop 8 from Brian Flores, and he felt so comfortable back there making every decision. And then on Sunday, a team that does not do a lot of the pressure looks, but is fundamentally sound on the back end. They just put a hurting on that Bears defense, and he looked comfortable the whole time down to that 3rd and 8 throw.
Yeah.
And it is hard. Like you said, appreciate it. I think it can be hard to appreciate because the standard is Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
And yet what we're seeing over the second half of the season is really the Aaron Rodgers standard. That seems impossible. Again, you said the Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, like that couldn't be possible. It shouldn't be possible that this is how he's playing.
Yeah, and obviously, I realize on Twitter or wherever people do then project what the next 10, 15 years could look like.
Yes.
And we're all
let him play, please.
Right. We're all flying extremely blind there. But I do have to say that it's possible this year is his most difficult challenge. Clearly climbing a Super Bowl mountain eventually will be a bigger challenge. But I'm just trying to explain the gravity of following that guy with a roster like this. And invariably, much like Rodgers had to deal with, there was a time where people wanted him to fail simply to verify their priors, to confirm their priors that the Packers screwed this up. And so you're not cheering against young Rodgers, but when Favre puts it on him in a Vikings uniform, you're kind of like, see, Ted, this is what we were saying. And so now Love has to face that same situation, and especially to finish the season in Minnesota and home to the Bears, and to have that Bears game sort of mirror the Lions game of last year in so many ways, but then to pass the test with flying colors that Rodgers did not. I don't know how anybody who's cheesehead adjacent just isn't super proud of what his mentality has demonstrated this year, because I feel like he's hit the ceiling of all the possible outcomes, even though 9-8 is not going to rewrite any record books as a team. But I just think Jordan Love has proven himself to be worthy of the Packers committing to him long term.
More to come here on Locked On Packers, an expert Tuesday for Super Wildcard Weekend. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, you can get the Packers plus 7.5 on FanDuel. Opened at 7 some places. FanDuel stayed pretty steady at 7.5 here. You can get the Packers on the money line plus 295, almost 3-1 if you like the Packers to win. That seems a little long. That means good value if you want to bet it. And now is a great time to do it with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet, win or lose. You place a $5 bet, you can win almost 3 times. And if you win it or if you lose it, doesn't matter, $150 in bonus bets. That seems like a good deal. Live same game parlays. I hit a same game parlay over the weekend at Lions -5.5 and the over 45.5, I think it was. Game went to 50. Lions took care of business. Made me some nice money. Find bets in the new Explore tab. That was actually one I found. In the Explore tab, I was like, oh, I like this one. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub and find the best popular parlays out there. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. Get that bonus bet money. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Yeah, and Matt LaFleur insists that there's more to go, that the ceiling can be even higher. We saw it on Sunday. He still had two probably pretty bad plays that he'd like back. Clean that up. And, we're talking about a guy who can be a top 5 quarterback in this league. That is crazy. Bob, you are the perfect person this week because it's Packers Cowboys. Mike McCarthy, you tracked him in Green Bay, now in Dallas. What is different about Mac in Dallas than what we saw in Green Bay?
That's a great one. Obviously not having to navigate the Aaron Rodgers relationship has probably, been something that he has found exciting. I think Mike McCarthy is classically undersold everywhere. I think Packer fans have an impression of him that Rodgers carried him. I think the nation has a thought of him. I think every time, and some of them are valid. I mean, throwing it in that situation against the Lions and giving the Lions almost an additional minute at the end of that game just last week is not a brilliant game management move. But
unless it works, right? Then he's aggressive, and you're like, hell yeah, let's go.
Then he's going for the kill shot, and he believes in his guys, and we all know how this sort of thing works. It's outcome based. But I'll tell you, man, following these two franchises like I have, one since I was born and one since I moved here in 1998 and started making, following the Cowboys my career. I just think it's amazing what he has transformed the Cowboys into after 10 years of Jason Garrett. And I just think the differences are stark. Also, the fan base here was predisposed to kind of hate his guts. Like, you went to a direct rival who has done so much harm and pain to the Tony Romo career and everything. Yeah. And you hired their head coach away, who won a Lombardi in our building, who has, authored a couple playoff just devastations to Cowboy fans in 2014 and 2016. Why are we hiring this guy? We can't stand this guy. And so, he
shows up in aviators on the first day.
Yeah. And, and then you have the COVID year and Dak's leg collapses and McCarthy looks like he has no idea what he's doing. They go 6-10. It's a disaster. And I'm telling you, Peter, since then, all I've seen is peak Mike McCarthy with the Green Bay Packers. And what does that mean? That means they dominate at home games. That means they don't lose consecutive games. That means when they get injured, they actually seem to welcome the challenges of playing without all of your guys. I mean, these are classic Mike McCarthy, Green Bay Packer era stuff where, it's just a flesh wound. We keep marching. And so this is not a soft Dallas Cowboys team. This is a playoff ready, hardened Dallas Cowboys team that I realize the uniforms are the same, but it's not the same guy. They have a McCarthy mentality, and I believe that's something to be proud of. A guy who always wins double-digit games, always has his team in the playoffs. Yeah, January, who doesn't want more positive outcomes, but 4 NFC title games. And, I think this is important, Peter. He has, I think Brett Favre played some of the best football of his career under Mike McCarthy, and I think McCarthy should get credit for that.
Yes.
I think McCarthy got Aaron Rodgers to some unprecedented levels of Aaron Rodgers, and now I think he's getting Dak Prescott to unprecedented levels. And if you want to go back to Aaron Brooks in New Orleans, you could do that too, and simply say almost every quarterback that plays for Mike McCarthy plays their best football under Mike McCarthy, and I don't think that's a coincidence. And I'll tell you right now, Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb, Peter, that is Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams to a T. Like they now know each other. They, and to have that mind meld and that relationship, again, under the exact same head coach, I don't think that is coincidence where McCarthy is getting a back massage and missing practice and enjoying donuts, and people paint him to be a complete buffoon. He does not have the marketing department of Sean Payton, but I'm telling you, Mike McCarthy is a darn good head football coach in the National Football League. And I believe that, following both teams, I feel like I have a rare insight to every single game the guy has ever coached as a head coach. And I'm just telling you, he's quality, man. He's not the best of the best, but he's so underrated nationwide.
He was a guy, I tried to tell Packer fans this because a lot of Packer fans were so excited when he got fired.
Right.
I was like, you guys, there was not a better match of personality and team than Mike McCarthy and the Green Bay Packers. Maybe Mike McCarthy and the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it's even hard to like do that because Mike Tomlin is also so perfectly matched with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was like, just appreciate that. And when the Cleveland Brown fans looked down their nose at hiring Mike McCarthy, I was like, you sorry franchise to look down your nose at Mike McCarthy, Super Bowl. I'm going to get heated and I don't want to, but like I was hot when that stuff was happening. I am so glad that you're saying this. And it's a perfect segue to this last piece.
Sure.
The Nobody's Underdog is a line that will live absolutely forever in Green Bay. And also when the Lions hung a division banner, everyone was recircling the Mike McCarthy quote, "We don't hang division banners around here," which I just thought was also perfect. But now this is the Packers saying, this was our new path. We have a new coach.
Yep.
But can they embody that nobody's underdog mentality under Matt LaFleur? If the Packers are going to go in as a touchdown underdog in Dallas and spring the upset, why, how, what? Tell me.
Yeah, it's a good question. In the past with the Jason Garrett Cowboys, it was almost like if you could just hand them a rope, they might actually hang themselves, and you just kind of have to wait them out. I mean, who's going to forget Matt Flynn coming back from 26-3 down,
Not me.
Against Tony Romo? I mean, in a game the Cowboys could not lose, and they're up 23 at halftime against Matt Flynn, and they just hung themselves.
Playing corner,
yeah. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how many times the Packers just had a stronger mentality than the Dallas Cowboys during that era. I mean, it was a time and time again. I think it's different now. And I think the challenge is more difficult because I do think yesterday in Washington, and I know it feels probably like a small accomplishment outside, but to Cowboys fans, when they heard Zach Martin was inactive and when they got a field goal blocked and then they threw an interception, and they're just like, oh my gosh, it's happening again. They're down 10-7 midway through the second quarter to a team that just doesn't care because they're all getting fired in the morning. So let's go for it on every fourth down. Let's empty the trick plays. And I'm just telling you, to see Mike McCarthy's team just be like, okay, that's cool, but we're about to double up at halftime and we're about to absolutely kill this game midway through the third quarter by just scoring 4 consecutive touchdowns and having 4 consecutive stops on defense, including a block punt, including a couple of takeaways. I know it's just Washington, but I'm just simply telling you, we've seen Cowboy teams collapse on themselves, almost a la what the Eagles are doing right now.
Yeah.
We've seen it so many times, and yet we don't see it anymore. And so to go into Dallas and to be the first team to beat the Cowboys in Dallas since week 1 of 2022, the Packers are going to have to play an extraordinary football game. We both know that. Are they capable of it? Absolutely. With the game they put on in Detroit and the game they put on in Minnesota, it's clear the Packers are a very good fast track dome team.
Yeah.
And so that will be there for them. They also do have, working for them, the idea that Cowboy fans are still not cured of their mentality that something might go wrong. And so it's not hard to take an entire stadium of Cowboy fans out of the game with just a little adversity punch in the face.
Yeah, it's 17-10 at halftime Packers. Like, what does AT&T Stadium sound like?
That's right. And so it happens very quickly. And like I said, they have a mentality that they're waiting for the collapse just because it's been, 1995 since they were in a Final Four. Yeah. But I do think coach and quarterback Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy is the most formidable duo Dallas has been able to offer in this series, going back to, Aikman and whoever probably. So, with all due respect to Wisconsinite Tony Romo and whether it be Wade Phillips or Jason Garrett, I just think McCarthy can hold his own at a very high level with a guy like LaFleur, and Prescott can hold his own very well. And the self-destruct idea of Cowboys football seems to be in the rearview mirror. But again, it's the playoffs, it's the NFL, it's two teams that really like their chances right now. So I can't wait for Sunday. It'll be a lot of fun.
Still, plenty more to come on Locked On Packers on a Super Wildcard Weekend. It's Expert Tuesday. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy platform in North America, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you need to do, put a couple players together, take their stat projections that Prize Picks sets for you. You don't have to worry about it. They set the number, and all you have to do is decide if you think the players are going to produce more or less. Dak Prescott passing yards, Aaron Jones rushing yards. That is the bones of a lineup, and you can win up to 25 times your money. Turn 10 into 250 in just a couple taps. Sounds pretty fun to me. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and enormous selection of players and stat types make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And they now offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Come on. Can't be any easier than that. Right on your phone. Never have to leave your phone. Don't have to pick up a card. Apple Pay. Bing, bang, boom. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL with code LockedOnNFL to get that deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It is going to be awesome. And it is the Packers who were the architects of a lot of those collapses in the postseason. And so that's what makes this particularly interesting. We know the deed transfers from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love on the Bears. Does it at AT&T Stadium where Aaron Rodgers never lost? We'll see. I said absolutely last thing. Did Dez catch it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know what? I think both teams were clear about that when it happened, right? I think, and I walk this tightrope because Cowboy fans have obviously helped me acquire a nice sized house. And so I'm very thankful to them, and I want to be respectful. But in that particular matchup, there was no indication Rod Marinelli's defense was going to be able to stop Aaron Rodgers. And with the Dez catch, the Cowboys go up 27-26, or I suppose they could have gone for 2, and maybe it's a 28 or 29-26, and Rodgers has the ball with 4 minutes to go. So I think almost everybody on the Cowboys thought that was a catch. Everybody on the Packers, I think, thought that was a catch. They kind of shrugged, and I think that following drive tells you the Packers were probably going to win anyway. But yeah, it's still a sore subject down here. And I'll tell you, Peter, there's a lot of Cowboy fans that have trauma when they get paired with the Packers, and it would be therapeutic for them to disable that ghost on Sunday. Yeah. But until they do, I think a lot of them are like, holy cow, how is it always the Packers that show up in these spots? And trust me, I would sign any piece of paper right now to say the Packers and Cowboys never meet in the playoffs, because it puts me in
a tough spot.
It puts me in harm's way a little bit. I got to lay low. I got to stay out of my mentions for a week, but it's all good. I'm used to it after all these years.
It's so funny, Bob, because we had our Locked On Cowboys last year. We did our crossover, and Marcus and Landon were like, I know the Packers are 4-8 or whatever they were when they played Dallas, and like, we just aren't. It doesn't matter. We are petrified of Aaron Rodgers, and guess what? Christian Watson, 3 touchdowns on their head, and the first fourth quarter collapsed up 14 in Cowboys history.
Yeah.
And they do it. So this is recent trauma here too, just a different quarterback. So that makes this particularly interesting. Bob, appreciate the time, man. This was great.
Yeah, it's always fun, and enjoy following your work.
All right, thanks to Bob for joining the show. He was on with us a couple years ago. Not this most recent, I think it was the year that Rodgers broke his collarbone again? 2017? He was on a long time ago. That couldn't have been that long ago, but he's definitely been on the show before. Bob and I have followed each other for a long time. He knows ball. He does the draft. He is a really, really smart football person, and it is great that he is this is the perfect Venn diagram of things that you want this week. Someone who's watched basically every game Mike McCarthy has ever coached, has watched all of the Jordan Love experience, and now has been following the Mike McCarthy experience in Dallas very, very closely. So that was a lot of fun. I frankly did not know he was that adamant about Mike McCarthy, but I love to see it because I feel the same way about Mike McCarthy. The Mike McCarthy slander has gone way too far nationally, locally for Green Bay Packer fans. I don't appreciate it. I don't like it. Be a fan, however you want to be a fan. But I don't think it's earned. I don't think it's valid. But, feel how you feel, I suppose. We'll be back tomorrow. How you doing on Wednesday? Crossover Thursday. Working on an interview for Friday. We are going to have some fun here. Super Wildcard Weekend. This is when we thrive. This is how I win, Adam Sandler once said. Hopefully it goes a little bit better for the Packers than it does for Adam Sandler in that movie. No spoilers. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter. At Locked On Packers, and anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live, we will be live after the game Sunday afternoon, 3:30 Lambeau time is the kickoff. We'll be live shortly thereafter, after the gun. That is on our YouTube page, so you can stay Locked On Packers.